Ducati breaks with many traditions with the current Monster. Not only is the displacement not specified, but fans of the traditional trellis frame have to give it up completely. Does it really pay off to give up the typical steel frame for a few kilos less? We compare the Monster with the four mid-range naked bikes Kawasaki Z900, KTM 890 Duke GP, Triumph Street Triple R and Yamaha MT-09. Times are changing, even for one of the most tradition-conscious motorcycle manufacturers in the world. Ducati has radically redesigned the current Monster. The fact that the engine displacement at the end of the name has been dropped is actually the smallest change. The switch from the 821 to the larger 950 engine 937 cubic capacity, to be precise, is actually a logical step that is not at all surprising. The abandonment of the traditional trellis frame, on the other hand, is quite a bit to swallow as a fan of the steel frame that was allowed to accompany the Monster series for a proud 27 years. Why am I telling you all this, when the Monster has been coming along with a simple aluminum frame for over 2 years now? Because until this test I had never had the pleasure of riding the current Monster. All the greater was my interest in the, admittedly anyway very chic Italian. Yes, I also missed the traditional trellis frame a little, but a total of 18 kilos less compared to the predecessor is actually a really good argument for the aluminum chassis. Only 188.5 kilos fully fueled, measured by ourselves on our 1000 PS scales, already promise good handling on paper. And I was not disappointed. Only one of the comparison quintet is lighter. KTM's 890 Duke GP weighs just half a kilo less. When cornering at speed, the Monster can therefore be thrown very agilely around any radius, which suits a Ducati very well, which usually has a certain claim to sportiness. The seating position is also successful. Although you sit front-wheel oriented on the Monster, you are still upright enough to describe the overall ergonomics as sufficiently comfortable. However, the suspension engineers did overshoot the mark a bit when it came to tuning the suspension elements, with the suspension leaning too much towards comfort. Personally, I still find it a good compromise, since apart from the spring preload on the rear monoshock, nothing can be adjusted. However, the front fork could have been made a bit firmer. Sporty ambitions are nipped in the bud quite quickly because of the strongly dipping front when braking ambitiously. The Yamaha MT-09, for example, also offers a certain degree of comfort in the chassis, but its front does not dive away as much. The Ducati Monster's high-quality braking system is well tuned for everyday use. The 320 double-disc system with radial Brembo M432 monoblock calipers is easy to dose anyway, but this system could be sharper. The Triumph Street Triple 765R, for example, is also equipped with the Brembo M432 system, but bites much harder on the small British bike. In principle, the suspension, handling, ergonomics and brakes would be ideally equipped for everyday use, and the Monster would be an all-round naked bike for all occasions. If it weren't for the engine, which is all too jerky at the bottom end. Please do not misunderstand. The engine with 111 horsepower at 9,250 revolutions is worthy of a Ducati, pushes from the middle neatly, and has in the upper range these typical vibrations, which one so appreciates in a V2. The torque of 93 Nm at 6,500 revs is also okay. Power is there, but only from the middle. Nothing happens in the low range, and cruising through towns at low revs in 6th gear is unthinkable. At best, you have 4th gear in it and prefer to shift to 3rd gear on the smallest inclines because of the starting jerkiness. The 4 other mid-nakeds can do this far better. Even the 2-cylinder KTM with slightly less displacement doesn't act so beastly. The Yamaha with 1 cylinder more is far easier to care for, and even the Triumph with almost 200 cubic meters less does it much better. Clearly, the Kawasaki Z900 with its sonorous, commanding inline four-cylinder engine is a completely different world. Interestingly, though, all this bothers Ducati riders and fans far less than it does me. They know what they're getting into. I clearly compare with other machines and recognize weaknesses that apparently represent more character than weakness for Ducatisti. Personally, I would have liked to see a more suitable engine for everyday use with this overall design of the Monster. The fact that the Ducati is by far the most expensive naked in our quintet at €14,895 in Austria, €12,790 in Germany, and 13,490 francs in Switzerland should not bother the potential buyers any further. For fans of the noble machines from Bologna with all-round high-quality components, this is just another distinguishing feature from the rest of the crowd. 5 motorcycles, ergo 5 testers. Each of the 5 editors was allowed 4 points in the test to evaluate. 20 points were thus possible. With 12 points, the Ducati Monster comes in last place. Like me, most of the other testers found the engine management too rough in the lower rev range, the suspension a bit too soft, the brakes too well behaved, and the price too high. Obviously, we always expect a sporty approach from a Ducati and are disappointed when it is not fully met. But as already mentioned, the current Monster is a thoroughly accessible naked bike that can definitely convince with its fine finish and high-quality equipment. You can always argue about the looks and the lack of a trellis frame, but the current Monster is anything but ugly. Basically, it would be a great everyday naked bike with pleasant ergonomics and a braking system that doesn't surprise even the inexperienced. Even the rather soft suspension can be considered an acceptable compromise, but for a Ducati it's rather surprising that at least the front fork wasn't tuned a bit tighter. Unfortunately, the charismatic engine bucks strongly at low revs, and thus only displays its wonderful V2 character on the country road. All in all, however, this reflects the overall image of the Monster very well, a typical Ducati that is also good for everyday riding in terms of suspension and brakes. Thanks for watching and listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below the video. We will try to answer everything. Leave us a like and subscribe to our channel, because there will be more videos on the mid-range naked bike comparison to come. Thanks and see you soon.